for the cat.
Kitty cat crossing back and forth. That means we got JP. He's over there. Sorry, JP.
That way, John.
He came back, even though we tend to frustrate him with the books that he reads when he joins us. He still joined us.
You know, we sometimes have a difference of opinion. It's okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Book Club here on New Comic Book Day, even though we don't have any new comic books really.
Yeah, what's a new comic book?
Right? But we are reading a fairly modern comic compared with last week when we were on Alex's channel and we were diving into a copy of AF-15 literally being opened before our very eyes.
That was awesome.
Good luck beating that one, John.
I know. I'm saying that episode was so good. I had to take a moment and be like, okay, I got to post this on Instagram because people need to see it. If you haven't seen it, go to Alex's channel later on, not right now, and watch. You get to see Knights of Old actually was sharing a raw copy of AF-15 while we were reading it. And he went through every panel that contained Peter Parker's story.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what you're saying is you guys so good last week that instead of trying to top it, you just went for the worst possible guess you could come up with.
I was actually going to say the one way we could top it is with our boy JP.
So we're going to go completely the other end.
We're going Thor God of Thunder by Jason Aaron. And I was excited because JP picked this up for quarantine reading. And I had been working my way through the God of Thunder storyline because JP and we read this Jason Aaron run the same way. We started at Jane Foster and read forward, but we never went back and read the original pieces.
Yeah, so that was, for me, it started with basically my sister decided to read, she bought the trades to read the Jane Foster Thor run. She had heard it was good. She decided to read it. So she liked it. I borrowed those trades. So that is how I got into it. And neither of us had ever read hardly any Thor at all before this. So going back to read the start of it was a big deal. Because I read all the way through King Thor, but I never read what started it all. So I was super excited to do that.
And then Alec, you have read only a little bit of Jason Aaron's Thor run, right?
Yeah, I had read some of the Thor proper Jane Foster when she took over the title. I read the beginning, the first whatever issues of that until she, are we supposed to start? Yeah, past that. But anyway.
Okay.
And then I kind of jumped back on for the event they had last year, but I'd never gone and read any of this or much of the rest of his run.
So this was kind of a fun way for us to kind of dive in and get to I would say the root of what Jason Aaron was kind of doing with this Thor storyline. But let's get into the chat real quickly and say hello to some people who came by to join us, including, this is Andrew. He's one of my former students. Andrew is now a 6th grader. He was in Kate's class. And it's nice to see you, Andrew. I hope you're having a good night. We're talking about Thor tonight.
So watch your language, everyone.
Yeah, 6th grader. He's probably heard it all. We got Tony Sanders in here right off the bat. Thank you for coming by.
Tony.
We got Thunder House Design. He was with us over at the Comic Core, and he rolled over here. We got Perry in the chat. Perry is exploding, if you guys haven't known.
Is he okay?
He's more than okay. JP and Thor, what a mashup. Yeah, we went from mashup to mashup tonight. Daymares is still rocking the mashup list we did over on the Comic Core tonight. And if you missed it, it was highly entertaining because our friend Comics Misexplained, Jason, actually made some amazing graphics for all of our favorite mashups that we came up with this week. So there's some very good comedy over there if you missed all that. Bearded Comic Bro, hello to you. And Comics for Blame, hello to you. I love the Daredevil there you got. And Backseat Driver, where are you? There you are. Sorry. Gorilla Todd, he's going to be one of our guests next week. So thank you for coming by, Gorilla Todd.
One of our guests, because stay tuned.
Right.
Can you reveal what you're reading next week?
Yes, we're on schedule to be able to reveal tonight what next week's book is. It's mind-blowing. TJ, hello to you. And the Gray Matter Hulk talking about Knights of Old is the man. He was great on Comic Book NYC's art show. Yeah, he's always awesome. Katie Kaboom, hello to you. And yes, great responsibility is important. Yes. Let's see. We got the immortal Biggie Shack. It's my Wednesday, man. I'm busy. Alec and I, we rock the Wednesday world.
Yeah, man. We own the YouTube.
You got to watch out. We own this space. Sam, I am. Hello to you. And the art chemist. How you doing, man? And Captain Comics. Hello to you. And then there's Gorilla Todd. So, yeah. So
that's Gorr Vidal in there, too.
I missed Gorr?
Gorr.
Oh, and Superior Hero. Man, I'm sorry. StreamYard jumps on you. He is a dope writer, and I've loved a lot of his. I picked up Southern Bastards right before vacation, and I've been reading my way through what is the one on the tribal gambling casino? Scalped. Yeah.
I love Scalped. Scalped's really good.
Yeah. So he's got lots of great indies as well. And Ben Compton just jumped in. Hello, man. So, again, we're here to discuss Jason Aaron's original 11 issues of Thor. We are diving into what I would consider to be like the Gorr, the God Butcher storyline, drawn by Esad Ribic. I will say, for me, I loved Russell Dodderman later on. But if I just was going on art, this is probably my favorite art in Jason Aaron's entire Thor run.
Esad Ribic is so good.
I mean, like,
there's a couple of wacky panels with some weird faces, but overall, like, especially the Gorr stuff, it looks really good.
I mean, there's multiple panels in every issue that could be like the cover of an issue. I mean, there's just, he is amazing.
I didn't realize before I read this that this was Thor versus Voldemort, though.
There he is.
Yeah, a little HP humor for you.
Yeah, this is the villain of this 11-issue run. If you're not familiar, Gorr is an interesting character who I still feel like is not fully. His potential is not fully developed in the Marvel universe. I still feel like they're holding back some of his story.
Well, I've got a lot to say about Gorr.
Yeah. Do we want to start with Gorr, or do we want to?
Yeah, let's talk about him, because clearly he dominates these 11 issues, right?
Yeah.
Right. He's the even though there's 3 Thors, he's kind of the star of the show, right?
Yeah.
Definitely. So what do you think, Alec? What do you think about this character, Gorr, the God Butcher?
I think I thought he was cool until they had his origin issue.
Which is like right near the end, right? Right near
it's like issue 6 or 7. I think
okay,
it's
so in the middle.
In the middle.
And to me, it kind of like flawed him, but not in a good way, because he's just for the lack of a better term, he's a goddess, right? He hates all gods because one god smote him.
Right.
But he doesn't even know that. He just assumes the gods smote him or his family. Smited.
I like how you're using the verb smite.
Yeah. So it's like so for those of you who haven't read it, basically his backstory is that he was raised on a planet that worshipped gods and felt that they controlled all of fate and that they provided everything good and punished those who were bad. And his mother died in front of him, and then his wife died, and then his kids died, and he blames it all on the gods.
Right.
And so one day he is burying his last child when the rest of his tribe, who they're kind of moving along this desert to try to find a new food source, they see him burying his son. They're like, "You can't bury your son. That's against our ways." And he says, I don't care what you think, basically. And so they leave him for dead. And in the middle of the desert, as he's begging for death from basically starvation and heat stroke, two gods fall from the sky who are fighting with each other, one of which has the necro sword, I'm guessing. It was a little unclear to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
But either way, that's when he kind of like becomes Gorr. He adopts their powers and starts trying to kill every god in existence to punish them for what they did to him.
Yeah.
So for me, that's like equating saying a guy with blonde hair killed my dad, so then therefore every guy with blonde hair has to die. Furthermore, he doesn't even know they did that. For all he knows, that god who fell from the sky was fighting to defend his people, and that they have such a war in the heavens going on that they're doing everything they can in their power to give them as little as they have. So his hatred for the gods is in his own mind, and he goes on this wild genocide because he's mad that his family died.
Well, Bearded Cockbro calls him the Punisher of the Thorverse. So in that way, you might be agreeing with each other.
Well, you know, and it's very much like, because his first interaction with the god is, he feels like the gods have abandoned him or smote him, as you said, and his whole family. And the first thing the god says when he comes across it is, help me. The god's asking for him to help him, and he feels like he's never been helped. And whether that's true or not, he doesn't really know. And that moment, he just breaks, and it's like, screw you all, I'm going to kill them all. And I do feel like that's probably the weakest part of the story. Is I feel like Alec, I feel like it is a little thin for him to go on this centuries, eternity long mission to kill all the gods like that he's going on. It
seems a tad overkill.
I can sympathize with what you're saying as far as it being a little simple. I would also say I like the purity of it. Like the simplicity of it is kind of nice in the sense that this is clearly a broken person who is not going to think rationally and has no understanding of gods or their world or anything, just knowing and believing in his heart of hearts that they have complete dominion over the world around him. And once their actions in his mind have created these horrible consequences, and he is given the opportunity to get retribution, of course, I find his journey delicious in some kind of way. Like
for me, I just think I would have enjoyed it a lot more if that issue was not included.
I don't know. I didn't mind it at all. It didn't bug me, but I can see what you're saying.
Oh, yeah. So, and I do think the other thing, though, that they put in here, and I think it's developed over sort of the rest of his run, particularly like King Thor and some other things that he and Case have done with the Necro Sword, is that some of it is also the Necro Sword probably pushing his hatred. Like the Necro Sword is not just a weapon.
It completely corrupts him. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a corrupting force in and of itself that, like, I think takes his rage and just amplifies it. Mm-hmm. And they don't really go into all of that because they like give you pieces of, because you don't even get the name of the weapon until the last issue of this run. Like he gives you those pieces over the entire Jason Aaron run. And then I know they've done some stuff that I haven't read in Donny Cates with Null and all that kind of stuff too with the Necro Sword. So
for me, like I would have thought it would be much more interesting if it was more of a general hatred. Like if Thor was asking him at one point, you know, why did you do this? Or why are you doing this? And he just says something as simple as, you gods are so wrapped up in your own ways, you do nothing but fail your people. And this whole like background of him being this good person at some point, like if he were just evil the whole time, would have been more interesting to me than him being this like loving husband and father who then was
I don't
corrupt.
see him as loving husband and father to be. I see him as flawed right off the bat, as just being so completely wrapped up and lost in his vision of the world.
I'm talking about on his own planet before.
Yeah.
Like even when he goes hunting for the little flowers and stuff for his family.
I think he is honestly so lost in his perception of the universe that he's walking on shaking ground, right?
You can say that about a lot of people.
Well, truly, but he seems like a lost soul to me at the beginning. He seemed pretty shallow and fragile right off the bat.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But that's just me.
But again, cut out that whole issue for me. Just like I thought, to me, again, we can move on, but that brought down the 11 issues.
Sure.
Okay.
So
how about that Assad Ribic art?
Alec mentioned the 3 Thors, which is kind of fundamental to this storyline. We have King Thor. We have Thor from our timeline, right, who is an Avenger right now flying around. And then we have young Thor still living that sort of Viking lifestyle and slaying beasts and bedding women and drinking mead.
And not worthy yet.
Right.
Yeah, he can't lift up the hammer.
He can't lift the hammer.
And I will say I am missing issue 1. And there's a issue 1 and issue 2 are actually like a 2-part cover. You get, it goes the other way. Half of God Thor's face. Let me blow myself up here a little bit. Sorry. And then you get young Thor, and on the other side, you get right in my face. You get actual Thor from our timeline, and the other half of King Thor's face. I think it's a great split cover, and you get Gorr, of course, here on issue 2. But it's, for me, it's a great capture of the whole storyline, which is these 3 Thors facing down against Gorr and his evil weapon over generations, basically.
Yeah, thousands of years.
Yeah. How did you guys feel about the 3 Thor structure? Because it constantly jumps in time.
I really enjoyed it because it's showing that this, it builds up Gorr as a threat. That this is not a threat that that he deals with, and I think it also really develops Thor for someone who hasn't read much Thor. And even if you've read the Jane Foster stuff, most of that he's not even in. Odinson is in parts of it, but he's not in all of that run. So, to me, it was a really interesting, quick introduction to the evolution of this character throughout his life. Who he was, who he is now that we see him, and who he's going to be, in a way that I thought was really well done and made sense. And, I really enjoy when both younger Thors see King Thor, they're like, Dad, and he's like, God damn. It's because that's the last thing he wants to be is become Odin, but it's also what he sort of becomes. And I just really enjoyed using the character at 3 different, very distinct portions of his life, with 3 different, very different perspectives. Because he lives for so long, he's the same person, but a very different person. And all 3 of these guys are very different, and yet they're the same because the cast of Ale, and they're still Thor, but they're also very different in their life experience and where they are. And I thought it was a really interesting way to tell this story and deal with this particular villain, at least for me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it draws out the arrogance of Thor, which is always one of the most defining and interesting characteristics of him. From young Thor, where he's just like, I can do anything I want. I'm never going to die. I'm going to live the dream. Whatever happens, I'm just going to be amazing. And then you have God Thor or King Thor at the end, who is clearly lost arms and eyes, and it's just and ultimately seems to be sitting on a throne that's crumbling underneath him in many ways. And then Thor in the middle, who's like, I'm somewhere halfway in this journey.
I like how when Medium Thor meets Big Thor, that's what I'm going to call him. Medium Thor meets Big Thor, and Big Thor makes fun of Medium Thor's beard. That cracked me up.
Yeah. He makes fun of his beard, and then he says something about being a space cop or something. Have you done that yet? And he's like, what? No. And he's like, never mind, forget what I said. It's like,
yeah, there's several layers of interaction between these three generations as they come in contact with each other on their journey to battle Gorr. And I really like the interaction.
I will say I agree with JP insofar as that it makes the threat of Gorr grander, because you see it's not just like this villain who pops up suddenly who's bad and then he just defeats him quickly. It's like this has been Thor's, cross to bear. It has been it's been a weight on his back for his entire life that he hasn't been able to defeat. I will say though, for the three different Thors, I found it more interesting when it was kind of jumping around a little bit more, when it was intercut a little bit more, because we've talked about things like Game of Thrones before, where you get so wrapped up in a certain storyline that when it jumps to a different storyline, you're like, I don't care about this as much right now. And I found that way with young Thor a lot in this, where it was much less interesting to me, partially because it had less consequence, because we know that already had happened, so it was just backstory.
Is that like the inevitability of time travel storylines in some ways, where clearly this is not going to have any significance because young Thor's not going to die and Gorr's not going to die?
Well, it is insofar as that they never, if it were traveling through time the whole time, back and forth and jumping all over the place, then you can say who knows what's going to happen at any point because the timeline can change.
Right.
But because that was all clearly in the past, and everything happened. So basically, because it's also a comic book, that the continuity Thor is going to be the one whose timeline is the one that changes.
It's most effective, yeah.
So, the future one is kind of there to advance the story. The past one is there to give backstory. And the middle one is okay, this is where the story is happening.
This is the one. Yeah.
So that was my only kind of gripe with the three stories, but he did it very effectively. Besides that,
I will say the thing that I loved about young Thor and the sequence that we get with him, especially in the early issues, because later they're all together, like you're saying, I love the sort of historical aspect to it, where you feel like you're in those Viking ages and everything feels more godlike, the belief in gods and monsters and everything, the way that Esad Ribic draws everything, the cave where Gorr lives, the Native American sort of god that he has slain on Earth. I love that whole, there's a creepy nostalgia almost to it. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't uninteresting. It's just at times I found myself wanting kind of slipping through pages a little faster.
Hurry. Yeah, let's get back to this.
Speaking of Esad Ribic's art, really quickly, my favorite thing about it is the texture he puts in the blacks.
Yeah. It's not just black.
It's not just black. And at times he makes it just black, but most of the time, you can see kind of brush strokes or, pen strokes or whatever. And I think it makes it so much more deep.
Yeah, there's some panels that are just, amazing. And
yeah, I think he really excels in the Gorr panels.
Absolutely. But he also, let's find that one I was looking for.
I was like, there's just a ton. I don't know that any of them are going to live up to what we want to share, because there's just a ton of them.
The light is probably not good enough, coming through the camera to show you what's on the page, in the blacks at least.
Yeah.
But
He does tend to cross the line quite a bit, though, in his camera work.
Yeah. I mean, just, yeah, if you can't, like, anytime Gorr is on the page, he just crushes it. It's just, yeah.
Like the movement he puts into the shadows and stuff, it's just so cool.
Yeah. I mean, like this.
Oh, I was just looking at that page a second ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that page is lightning and black, but there's so much more there that you can't really even see, like over here.
Yeah.
It doesn't show up, but it's there. Like Alex says, like the brushstrokes and there's depth.
He's one of those artists that does everything.
Yeah.
Like he does the full finished page, which is crazy.
And the cover and usually covers and yeah. So the first storyline is really introducing Gorr. The second storyline is Gorr's like final plan, the God Bomb, which is a hilariously Marvel kind of idea that he's got a God Bomb. I just love it. And it was so bonkers that I was like, yeah, I'm in on this. God Bomb? Yeah, I'm down. The idea was absurd enough, but the everything up to then had kind of layered in enough reality that I totally bought in on. Did anybody like giggle at the idea of the God Bomb?
I mean, listen, it's comics.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, that was it. That's all you wanted to listen. Just listen to those two words. It's comics.
It's comics.
I mean, that can kind of explain away a lot of stuff.
I mean, it's an interesting concept because, like, basically this whole, and you find that there's this basically beaten down god that Thor finds that supposedly escaped from Gorr, that he won't tell you what he is until he finally tells you that he's the god of bombs. And yeah, so in this, he basically tells Gorr how to build a bomb that will kill all gods throughout time at the same time. And which makes no sense, but hey, what the heck?
Also, is like kind of lazy of him because he comments a number of times about how much he enjoys killing gods.
Yeah.
So why would he like deny himself that pleasure?
He's killed a lot of them. Let's be honest. That's the first storyline when Thor. I like the storyline with Thor finding all the like slain gods in their homes.
When he goes to the library, he's like, "What do you mean this whole section is forgotten gods?"
Yeah, lost gods, and it's like, well, they're just not. I'm sure they're somewhere. Everybody's like, they're somewhere, and he like it goes. All you have to do is go look where they're supposed to be, and they're all just dead.
Yeah.
And nobody's went and looked.
Yeah.
There's also like there's quite a bit of humor in this, despite the seriousness of the amount of murder there is, especially between the Thors. And my favorite line was when they're out in space on that ship, and baby Thor hits medium Thor with a shark, and medium Thor says, "What just happened?" And old Thor says, "Well, you just got hit in the face with a shark," like just so matter of fact and correct.
Yeah, the interaction between the Thors is highly entertaining for me as well. I think there's a lot of comedy that comes from watching them mess with each other and the different stages of their lives where they are. Hello, Z. Thanks for coming by, buddy. And yeah, Comics for Blame. I think anybody would be happy with a Journey into Mystery 83, 84, and 85. So that's
not for me.
Solid wish list there.
My favorite interaction with the Thors is when Big Thor and Medium Thor are getting ready to get on the boat and go before they run into Little Thor. And like Big Thor is telling him, like, you need to go to this room that Odin would never let you go to before we go to get ready for the battle. He's like, I am ready. And he's mumbling the whole way about like how surely this is an alternate future and I don't turn into my father and blah, blah, blah. And then he opens the door and he's like cursing about wasting time going to this room. And it's just full of casks of ale. And he's like, well, one drink won't hurt. That just made me laugh. It's like, yeah, go get drunk so we can do this.
Yeah, bearded comic bro. There's those space sharks. You know, they're out there flying
Space
around.
sharks.
Like, and if you
It's the opposite of street sharks.
yeah, Cosmic Ghost Rider, right? Like that, he rides on one, I think, in Cosmic Ghost Rider.
Space sharks. Yeah, there it is.
Back in the face.
Space shark.
Give that space shark a good smack.
Yeah, that's an excellent interaction too.
I wanted to kind of get into, obviously, like Alec was saying, we know that it's going to work out. It's a Marvel comic. We know that young Thor is not going to die because he's got to turn into older Thor and things like that. For me, though, it didn't cut into the dramatic tension. I thought there was still a lot of excitement as to what was going on, and maybe it was built in with all the murdered gods that we had at the beginning. It felt like there were stakes. There were like some serious things at stake here. On top of which, old Thor's storyline has to do with him basically having lost.
Yeah,
right.
I guess I got a little more bored once young Thor becomes like the slave, that whole storyline.
Sure.
Yeah.
But like we have the bits with old Thor where he is on the throne and he is dealing with
the toilet in this. Did I miss that?
Right. He's dealing with being surrounded by Gorr's minions, these like beasts. So he's clearly lost and he is trapped and unable to like solve any of the problems of the universe. So I feel like that all gives it dramatic weight, like the history of what he's done and the possible future of what he could achieve. I was really into that stuff. So I kind of was digging that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed he's going out and like basically trying to fight them enough that they'll kill him, and they won't. Gorr won't let him die. He won't let him leave Asgard, but they won't let him die either because he wants him to be there at the end. And
he also, pretty early on, he tells him, like, I'm going to torture you for a long time.
Well, yeah, he says he's going to save him for last, basically. And he is. He's very much determined to save him for last.
So this storyline bleeds into like we were saying into the God Bomb, which is the second half. And then Alec mentioned young Thor becoming a slave to the building and the execution of the God Bomb on like Gorr's God Bomb planet place.
Basically.
And then of course the teaming up of all the Thors to save the day. What did you guys think of the finale?
Once all three of them got together, it was exciting.
Yeah.
But like I said, that section with young Thor being a slave, that kind of, I was like, all right, I kind of wanted to move along a little bit to get to that point, which I kind of knew was coming. But you know me, I'm super critical about things, so don't listen to what I'm saying.
No, I mean, obviously it's good. That's the whole point of this show, I feel like, is to highlight the things that are working, the things that are not working, the things that are slightly unusual, the things that are typical, common, and why you might appreciate or be frustrated by some of these things. And that's the whole point. I mean, I know that we get teased about crapping on books, but when you dissect things, you're going to find stuff you like and stuff you don't. I mean, that's just the reality.
Or sometimes things you don't like and few things you do. No, like I definitely enjoyed this read. I read it too fast, I think, for myself. That's my fault because I'm a procrastinator, so I put off reading it for tonight too long to really like read it at the pace that I think it deserves. But it's a solid read. I just, I'm not going to give it a blanket pass because I thought it was a solid read.
What about you, JP? What did you think about the finale and the way Thor, of course, has to win against Gorr the God Butcher?
I really enjoyed it. I would agree with Alec that from the moment that medium Thor and big Thor get together, it takes them too long to get where they're going versus like we spend a little bit too much time with young Thor and what turns out to be his granddaughters. Like some of that goes on, and then the way young Thor ends up meeting up with the other two that was just kind of weird. I didn't like that. That was just kind of an excuse to get him off the slave planets. Like it was kind of an odd.
Yeah, it was a little clumsy.
Yeah, the final fight itself is really good. I will say, and I feel like I've noticed this with Aaron in general, and both not just with Rubik. So I put it more on Aaron, probably in the storytelling. Is that sometimes the fights themselves, like, are a little bit disjunct in terms of like they're doing something and then they're doing something else, and you don't really like. At times, it can be a little bit hard to follow. But I feel like that maybe is an Aaron thing because I feel like I've noticed that in other Aaron books that aren't this artist.
You mean that he likes to jump around?
The fight jumps around a little bit, where it's not like you see Thor swinging the hammer, and then the next thing you know, that Thor's on the ground, and another Thor's over there, and you didn't really see what Gorr did or how they got there. You know what I mean? Like it's, you get big moments, but you don't really get a fight that makes perfect sense. If that makes any.
Yeah, no, I can see what you're saying. I think he does love, like certain filmmakers might love a good jump cut. I think he does love kind of that disorientation of war or fighting, the chaos of it, if you will. So then I guess the question of the evening is, JP, do you want to read all the rest of the Aaron run of Thor? Are you invested enough now that you want to finish out any missing pieces you might have from this run?
I was probably already invested enough before this, but this did not I was excited for this part. I'd heard a lot of people talk about it. I wouldn't necessarily say it's my favorite part of the run, but it's close that I've read so far. For me, because Gorr had been this ongoing thing that they talked about, that Gorr was the reason Jane ends up getting the hammer and that he can't pick it up. And not knowing what happened there, this, for the most part, lived up to what my expectations were of setting that up. And he does there's so much setup in these 11 issues.
Oh, man. There's a lot.
Run.
Yeah.
That he pays, that I've already read the payoffs to. So when those moments come in here, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's this. And so, yeah, I have a few gaps I still have to read, but yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it.
But I think it's nice what you're saying. It's nice when a writer has a big moment in a character's life and then continues to deal with the repercussions of it.
Yeah.
So whether that's in Original Sin or Unworthy Thor or even the Jane Foster stuff, the ripple effects of this story go through his entire run.
Yeah.
And that's cool. That's awesome. I mean, do you think how many issues of Thor he used this as sort of the seed for what he was doing, which is cool.
I mean, these books were what, 2012, 2011? When God of Thunder first came out. And he wrote it till 2020, basically. I mean, there's basically 10 years of Thor that is Jason Aaron. Or at least 8. I think it's at least 8. Because 2014, I guess, is when Jane picked up the hammer. So there's probably 2 years before that. So maybe 2012. So there's an 8-year story here. And he's still paying off. He paid off things that are in this beginning all the way in King Thor, which was the end in late 2019.
Which I was going to ask, what do you guys think is the legacy of Jason Aaron on Thor? Because obviously he's left a huge fingerprint on that, right?
So it's got to be Jane Foster, right?
I think so. I think he made Jane a somewhat forgotten character in the Thor universe relevant, and I think it's going to be a main character for a long time to come. I think he's turned her into something that people love and will continue to pick up.
and he's still writing her right now.
Yeah, and he's still writing her now. But I also think, because let's be honest, like in terms of Thor villains, it's Loki, and then there's kind of everybody else. And I think Gorr has the potential to be one of the all-time, if he's used again by other art writers later, potentially one of the all-time great Thor villains. Which Thor doesn't have I mean, there's Loki, there's Enchantress, there's Hela. That's about it. So I do think he's added some depth to just Thor as a whole. That
the rogues gallery universe he's got.
The reason why I say it's got to be the Jane Foster run is because when this came out, and correct me if I'm wrong, but people didn't really care about it.
No,
they only started caring about this run a couple of years ago when people started picking up on Gorr and the Necro Sword, when Cates was doing all that stuff with Venom. But people really started caring about it when Jane Foster Thor came out.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think it was a retrospective.
Not to take away from this story being a good story, but when you look back and say, like, what did he really do? And not to discount your point, JP, because I think it's a good one about the villain, but that kind of, I mean, I guess it all remains to be seen, but
yeah. Well, no, I think Jane's going to be the main thing, but I think there's more than just Jane that
sure, like
last out of this.
Yeah.
So I was trying to say something else.
I mean, I think, like, if you write a book that long and you only have one thing that's a lasting, you're like, you kind of failed.
Yeah.
So I think, you could pick out 4 or 5 things probably that you could say are going to be lasting things in Thor's universe and then be true.
Yeah.
And I still think one of the most underrated elements in the Aaron run that I've enjoyed was the 5-issue miniseries of the Unworthy for the Unworthy or Unworthy Thor.
Yeah, and that's what I have not read yet.
I think it's a fun miniseries. It's 5 issues, but you get to see how sort of a broken version of Thor views himself as how am I in service to this universe now? He doesn't have the hammer. He doesn't have his identity. He doesn't have his home world. He's abandoned basically everything. He's got an axe and a goat, and he's just traveling the universe with his axe.
What else do you need?
Arm and
right. I think it's a really underrated element to this, and I think a really entertaining adjunct to the main story. It's not necessary, but it is enjoyable, fun side story.
Yeah.
There it is, Sam. I am. Pew, pew, pew.
I mean, I've heard a lot of people, and like I said, I've never really, outside of Aaron, I've read almost no Thor that's not like Avengers or something. You know what I mean? No, like Thor only books. And everyone I've heard talk about it has basically said this is going to go down as one of the best Thor runs there is, like a defining author or defining writer on Thor is what Jason Aaron's going to be. So, and I can see that just reading this is like, to me, he made a character. Even having read Avengers and stuff and watched the movies, I never really cared about, never found interesting. He made him flawed. He made him, the motivations that you get, like going into why Thor has the connection to Midgard that he does, why he comes back, why he's so reluctant to be the king of Asgard, to become his father. Like, he made all of that relevant to me in a way that I never really thought I would care.
Totally. Absolutely agree. And I was just re-highlighting Thunder House because I think you guys are saying a lot of those same ideas as far as the relatability of Thor.
And then he made Jane a character I knew literally nothing about other than she'd been Thor's girlfriend, one of my favorite Marvel characters now. Like, I really enjoy Jane and her perspective and like where she comes from and her, what she did, like the cancer and getting this power and then basically finding a new path in Valkyrie I've really enjoyed. And so,
yeah, Valkyrie, I've been enjoying a lot of that too.
Yeah. He's made Jane like taken Jane from an forgotten side, unimportant character and made her a very key part of the universe, as Alex said. That's going to be the part that lasts probably from this the most.
But I also think when people, obviously Simonson is pretty high on the list of great Thor runs, but I do think now Aaron gets to the place next to that, right? I think he's got, for my money at least, this history with the character now that's going to endure a little bit. I've been talking about Daredevil a lot with friends who are into that, and where does Chip Zdarsky's run fit? And it's so early to tell. But in the same way that I feel like reading these 11 issues, I got the feeling that he had a lot to say about this character. I feel the same way in Zdarsky's Daredevil, where I feel like this could go for a long time. He's got plenty to say here, and he knows the character really well and can draw a lot of interesting stories out of him. So I could feel that in these 11 issues of Thor: God of Thunder. We should wrap this up because Alex been yawning a bunch.
I'm sorry.
No.
I've been fixing my sink all week.
I know you've been messing with your pipe all day long.
Yeah, I went for pipe. It's just,
For more on that, watch the greatest comic book show ever on Comic Court later this evening or earlier this evening.
If you missed it, yeah,
later this evening on the replay.
So next week we are going to be reading something a little older, a little closer to Alex's heart. Alec, what are we reading, man?
We're reading Death, the High Cost of Living by Neil Gaiman.
And Vertigo again.
Chris Bachalo.
So this is our second Vertigo book for over vacay.
Yeah. Leave it to me, right?
So we got a couple of awesome apes to join us. We got Gorilla Todd coming in here, and we got the Unruly Simian.
nice.
This is going to be the monkey house, although
They're really monkeying around, even though they're apes.
Right? Exactly. So be prepared for some old school Vertigo for next week. If you have those books, you might want to dust them off and bust those out. Or if you want to get some copies, I found on eBay copies of this run, Death, the High Cost of Living, for really reasonable, cheaper than trades. You can get the actual mini series on eBay.
They're plentiful. So
check them on eBay. You could buy the issues. Mine should be arriving this weekend, and then I can read them. There he is, Gorilla Todd in the chat. Sorry, I missed some big comments here. Gore Vidal saying Aaron was able to capture the pathos of Jane Foster's character, and I agree again. Thunderhouse design Simonson, who drew the series, remains the standard. Aaron is second. I can appreciate that. I feel the same way with like Frank Miller, Daredevil, and then for me, like Bendis and Brubaker are second. And look, they're still going. Simonson's run groundbreaking at the time. Aaron's seems more so because it's 30 years later.
You guys should have a show.
I know. You guys, get together. Thunderhouse and Gore talk Thor.
Fun.
JP, do you have anything coming?
Word house design. You guys can use that.
Well, we're supposed to do like the first episode of my indie show where I finally actually read some indie comics. We were going to do Saga tomorrow night. DS Comics was also reading Saga for the first time, but he has been sick, so we may end up postponing for a little bit. So not sure if that's going to happen tomorrow night or not. So Saga is first, and then the 18th we're doing East of West. And then I have just my usual stuff as well. And then at some point, Alec will like this. This will be coming up in the not too distant future. So yeah, I gotta get that one scheduled yet. I haven't got people Alec to want to come on because I want to have people that have read these and new readers for my list of indie titles. So if you got anything you want to join me, and that goes for people in the chat or you guys.
I love Fables. Yeah. Always happy to talk Fables.
Bearded Comic Bro said no love for Mark Waid. I think Mark Waid's Daredevil is great. I think.
TJ, I recorded the Saturday show earlier tonight, so there you go. Although I made changes, so I might be in trouble. Not
man.
not big changes, but small changes.
Yeah, we read the first trade of Fables for Book Club, but for me, I've always loved, my favorite is the third trade.
Okay.
Storybook Love, I think, is phenomenal. So if you read more than one trade of Fables and want to get into the later storylines, I think Storybook Love it's one of my all-time favorite trades. That one is, like, for me, iconically great, just right up there.
Yeah,
with,
so far,
Daredevil.
I've only read two of them getting prepped for the shows. I've read Saga and I've read this, and I am crazy about this. I like want to go get the next volume like immediately.
I feel like everyone who reads that for the first time says the same thing.
Yeah,
it's really good. Bear Island just had the same reaction.
Yeah,
there you go. Alec, do you have anything coming up that you want to let people know about?
Nah.
Nothing with, like, how to change pipes and get your sink off?
No, I already did that. That was on another show.
Okay.
Thanks for paying attention to the show we were on together.
Here for you.
Yeah. Back next week on my channel. That's probably going to be about it.
Yeah. So if you guys want to hear about vertigo, death, the high cost of living, make sure you're subscribed to Alec over on White Whale Comics. I put the link to their channels in the description, of course, so you can find it, because apparently now you can't do that in the chat anymore, which sucks.
Terrible.
Really? And for me, let's see. I'm not on any shows tomorrow, but Friday.
Whole day?
What's that?
A whole day you're not on YouTube?
I know. I don't know what people are going to do without me. I'm actually doing an offline charity thing where I'm moderating something. So I'm like, I'll be on camera, but just not for anybody to watch.
And then, 4 people to watch.
Right. Yeah. On Friday, I'm back on my channel. We're doing Top 5 again. Top 5 is coming back Friday. It should be exciting. We got Highlight Comic Bro. We're doing another 80s. We're doing 80s horror movies. Top 5 80s horror movies. So it should be some fun horror chat. Yeah.
I may actually do something soon, but I won't tell anyone why.
Okay. Well, then keep that a secret.
So I don't want.
And then I'm super pumped Saturday. I got a bunch of things going on, but biggest of all is The Boy Who Had 7 is doing a special episode of Comic Gories where he calls it the big dogs. We got Bueller. We got, the philosophers, pop culture philosophers. We got Gem Mint, and we got Comic Tom, and they're all playing Comic Gories on Saturday afternoon. So subscribe to the Boy Who Had 7's channel as well, because that should be a monster show.
Does omnibuses count for Gem Mint?
He's using Omnis. He's playing with Omnis. It's going to be amazing. Gem is only playing with Omnis. That's his whole plan. He's going to be like, he's got to know the covers of his Omnis really well.
I was going to say, yeah, that would be different.
It's very exciting. It should be highly entertaining. He's going to have to sell it to the chat, man. Hi, Sharon. It's okay. We're just wrapping up and saying goodnight. But I have more people, I think, in our channel right now than we've had all night. So thank you. I guess something just ended.
Yeah, this show.
This is true.
Exactly. So thanks, everybody, for coming. Subscribe to everybody's channels, and we will see you all soon.
Bye.